In a shocking television moment that has the internet ablaze, tech billionaire Elon Musk abandoned his interview on Jimmy Kimmel Live mid-segment after the host's relentless mockery pushed him past his breaking point. What began as playful banter quickly descended into one of the most uncomfortable celebrity confrontations in recent late-night history. The tension was palpable from the moment Musk walked onto the stage. Kimmel's opening monologue had already taken several swipes at the billionaire's recent social media antics, but few could have predicted just how quickly the interview would spiral into chaos. The typically composed tech magnate grew visibly uncomfortable as Kimmel's questions became increasingly pointed, eventually leading to a dramatic exit that has set social media on fire. "Well, look who's decided to grace us with his presence. Tonight," Kimmel began, gesturing toward Musk as the audience applauded. "The man who's promised to solve everything from traffic to immortality, and is batting about 500 on delivery." The audience laughed nervously as Musk settled into his seat, offering a thin smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy," Musk replied, adjusting his blazer. "Always a pleasure to be here." His tone was measured, but there was an unmistakable edge to his voice. Kimmel nodded, shifting in his seat as he shuffled through his note cards. "So, Elon, you've been making headlines again. Your latest tweet about AI becoming sentient by 2026 has everyone talking. Care to elaborate on that prediction? Or was that just something you fired off at 3 a.m. after a particularly vivid dream?" A ripple of laughter swept through the audience as Musk's expression tightened momentarily before he composed himself. "Well, actually, Jimmy, if you'd followed the thread, you'd see I was referencing a peer-reviewed paper from MIT that—" "Oh, I'm sure there's a paper somewhere," Kimmel interrupted with an exaggerated nod. "There's always a paper. But let's talk about something more concrete, like those Cybertrucks finally hitting the roads. I saw one the other day. Nearly crashed my car trying to figure out if I was looking at an actual vehicle or a rejected prop from a low-budget sci-fi movie." The audience's laughter grew louder as Musk's smile faltered. "The Cybertruck's design is intentionally different, Jimmy. It's meant to challenge conventional thinking about what cars should look like. Mission accomplished." Kimmel cut in again, earning another round of laughter. "I mean, nothing says future of transportation like a vehicle that looks like it was designed using Minecraft." Musk let out a forced chuckle, his fingers drumming lightly against the arm of his chair. "The design is polarizing, sure, but it's also revolutionary in terms of durability and—" "Speaking of revolutionary," Kimmel interjected, his tone shifting slightly, "let's talk about Tesla's stock performance lately. Not exactly to the moon, is it?" He raised his eyebrows, glancing pointedly at Musk. "More like a roller coaster designed by someone who's never actually been on one." The audience's reaction was mixed. Some laughed, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The camera caught Musk's jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "Market fluctuations are normal, Jimmy," Musk responded, his voice noticeably cooler. "If you'd checked more recently, you'd see we're actually up significantly year over year despite—" "Oh, I've checked," Kimmel retorted, his smile now taking on a predatory quality. "I've checked because my producer invested his kid's college fund based on your Twitter predictions last year. He's considering renaming his boat from College Fund to Community College Fund." This time the laughter was sparse and awkward. Musk's expression darkened as he leaned forward in his chair. "That's not exactly fair, Jimmy. I've never advised anyone to invest based solely on—" "Fair?" Kimmel repeated, his eyebrows shooting up. "Let's talk about fair. Is it fair to announce you're taking a company private at $420, watch the stock soar, and then say, 'Just kidding'? Is it fair to promise full self-driving every year since 2016? The studio had grown uncomfortably quiet now. Musk's face flushed slightly as he cleared his throat. "Those are complex issues that can't be reduced to—" "Oh, they're reduced all right," Kimmel pressed on, seemingly emboldened by Musk's discomfort. Just like the expectations for your boring company. Remember when you were going to revolutionize transportation with underground tunnels? How's that working out? Last I checked, it's a glorified Tesla tunnel in Vegas where the cars still need drivers. Revolutionary indeed. Musk's expression had hardened completely now, his earlier attempts at affability abandoned. Jimmy, I came here to have a conversation, not to be the target of uninformed criticism. The Boring Company has made significant advances in tunnel, boring technology, reducing costs by over... Significant advances? Kimmel echoed incredulously. Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've mastered the art of digging holes, both literal ones and the figurative ones you keep putting your investors in. A few scattered laughs punctuated the growing tension. The camera caught a brief exchange of glances between Kimmel's producer and the stage manager, both looking concerned. "I've had enough of this," Musk said quietly, his voice barely audible over the murmuring audience. "If you wanted to actually discuss my work, that would be one thing, but this is just..." "Just what?" Kimmel pressed, leaning forward now. "Just pointing out that the Emperor of Innovation might be wearing fewer clothes than his devoted followers think? Come on, Elon. Your Mars colony is a decade behind schedule. Your solar roof tiles? Still waiting. Neural link? More promise than performance. At what point do we call a dream deferred a fantasy?" The audience was dead silent now. Musk sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously calm. "You know what, Jimmy? I didn't come here to be your punching bag. I came to discuss the future of sustainable energy and space exploration. But clearly you're more interested in cheap shots than substance." Kimmel's smile never wavered, but something shifted in his eyes. A recognition that he might have pushed too far, coupled with the television host's instinct to double down rather than back off. Cheap shots? That's rich coming from the guy who called a rescue diver a pedo guy because he didn't want to use your mini-submarine. Tell me, how's that working out for... Musk's hand slammed down on the arm of his chair with such force that several audience members gasped. That's it. He reached for his lapel microphone, his movements deliberate and precise. "I'm done here." As he began to unfasten the mic, Kimmel's expression finally faltered. "Oh, come on, Elon. Can't take a joke? I thought the self-proclaimed meme lord would have a thicker skin." Musk paused, microphone in hand, and stared directly at Kimmel. The silence that followed was electric, charged with a tension that seemed to crackle through the studio. Every person in the audience leaned forward, waiting for what would come next. "A joke?" Musk finally said, his voice low but intense enough that the mic still picked it up clearly. "No, Jimmy. A joke is supposed to be funny. What you're doing is using your platform to deliberately misrepresent the work of thousands of brilliant engineers and scientists who are trying to solve some of humanity's most pressing problems. And for what? Ratings?" The camera caught Kimmel's Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard, clearly unprepared for the sudden reversal. For the first time that evening, the late-night host seemed at a loss for words. Musk stood up, still clutching the microphone. "You want to talk about failure? Failure is giving up when things get difficult. Failure is choosing cynicism over hope. Failure is sitting behind a desk making snide remarks about people who are actually trying to make a difference in the world." The audience remained in stunned silence as Kimmel's producer made a frantic cutting motion from just off camera. But Musk wasn't finished. "You mock the Cybertruck," Musk continued, his voice gaining strength. "But you don't mention that it's built to last a century while most vehicles are designed for obsolescence. You joke about Tesla stock without acknowledging we've revolutionized an entire industry that refused to change for decades. You reduce the Boring Company to a Tesla tunnel while ignoring that we've cut tunneling costs by over 70%. Kimmel's famous smirk had vanished completely, replaced by a tight-lipped expression as he glanced nervously toward his producer. The red light on the camera continued to blink mercilessly. They were still live. "Look, Elon," Kimmel attempted, to regain control, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "It's just comedy. We take shots at everyone. Last week I made fun of the president's hairline for 10 minutes straight." "The difference," Musk shot back, "is that the president isn't sitting 3 feet away from you while you deliberately misrepresent his work. And let's be clear about something. When you mock Tesla, you're not mocking me. You're mocking the hundreds of thousands of people who've invested their savings in a future they believe in." A smattering of applause broke out in the audience, quickly hushed by the floor managers. Kimmel's smile returned, but it was strained, calculating. The smile of a man desperately trying to salvage a segment spiraling beyond his control. "Speaking of investors," Kimmel pivoted, doubling down rather than backing off, "maybe you could explain to them why Tesla shares dropped 15% last month after your, shall we say, colorful presentation of the new Model Z? I mean, unveiling a car that doesn't actually drive yet and claiming it will eventually fly. That's a bold strategy." The camera caught the muscle twitching in Musk's jaw. "The prototype? Oh, it was definitely a pro-something," Kimmel interrupted with a dismissive wave. "Procrastination, maybe? Probably not ready for prime time?" A few nervous laughs rippled through the audience, but most remained uncomfortably silent, witnessing what felt increasingly like a public execution rather than entertainment. "You know what, Jimmy?" Musk said, suddenly eerily calm. "You're right about one thing. Tesla stock did drop after that presentation. And do you know why? Because stock traders react to perception, not reality. When influencers like you spread misinformation about technical challenges being failures rather than part of the innovation process, it has real consequences." "Misinformation?" Kimmel repeated incredulously. "I'm a comedian, not a financial advisor. And if your stock price can't survive a few jokes, maybe the problem isn't with the jokes." "The problem," Musk responded, his voice dropping to an intense near-whisper that somehow commanded more attention than a shout, "is that you're actively contributing to a culture that punishes innovation and rewards cynicism. Do you have any idea how many critical projects throughout history would have been abandoned if their creators had listened to the Jimmy Kimmels of their time?" Kimmel's face flushed. "Oh, please. Comparing yourself to history's great innovators is a bit—" "I'm not comparing myself to anyone," Musk cut him off. "I'm talking about the principle. Edison failed thousands of times before creating a working light bulb. If Twitter had existed then, people like you would have been posting memes about how many Edisons it takes to fail to screw in a light bulb." An uncomfortable murmur rippled through the audience. Kimmel's producer was now making frantic, wrap-it-up gestures from beside the main camera. "Let me tell you something about failure," Musk continued, ignoring the signals. "SpaceX nearly went bankrupt after our first 3 rocket launches failed. Tesla was weeks from collapse in 2008. Neuralink has faced countless technical challenges. But here's what your punchlines don't capture. We solved those problems. We didn't give up. And because we persisted, we now have reusable rockets, mainstream electric vehicles, and are making groundbreaking progress with neural interfaces." Kimmel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, caught between his instinct to continue the attack and the dawning realization that he'd miscalculated badly. "Look, Elon, nobody's saying persistence isn't admirable. But when you make promises to investors about—" "Since when do you care about investors, Jimmy?" Musk demanded, his eyes narrowing. 2 minutes ago you were mocking them for believing in Tesla. Which is it?" A stagehand appeared at the edge of the set, holding up a sign that read, "Commercial 30 seconds." Kimmel nodded almost imperceptibly, visibly relieved at the approaching respite. "We'll continue this fascinating conversation after the break," Kimmel said, turning toward the camera with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "No, we won't," Musk replied calmly, finally removing his microphone and placing it deliberately on the side table. "I didn't come here to be ambushed." Kimmel's eyes widened, professional panic setting in. A guest walking off during a commercial break was one thing. Doing it live on air was quite another. "Come on, Elon, don't be so sensitive," Kimmel said, his tone shifting to appeasement. "It's all in good fun. We can talk about your actual accomplishments after the break." "My accomplishments," Musk echoed, standing up fully now. "Like helping to reduce global carbon emissions? Creating the most successful American car company in a century? Landing orbital rockets vertically? Those accomplishments?" The audience had gone from uncomfortable silence to palpable tension, collectively holding their breath as they watched the train wreck unfold in real time. "Yes, exactly those," Kimmel backpedaled, his voice taking on a conciliatory tone that came too late. "That's what people want to hear about." "What people want to hear about," Musk replied, stepping away from his chair, "is progress, hope, solutions to problems that actually matter, not cheap shots from someone who's never built anything in his life." The camera caught Kimmel's expression hardening at this direct attack on his own legacy. His trademark affability vanished completely, replaced by something colder and more genuine than anything his audience typically saw. "At least I deliver what I promise," Kimmel fired back, abandoning any pretense of reconciliation. "My show starts at 11:35 and ends at 12:35. I don't tell people it'll start at 11:35 and then push it back 5 years while asking for more money." The atmosphere in the studio had become electric. Several audience members audibly gasped at the escalation. Musk stood perfectly still for a moment, staring at Kimmel with an expression that mixed disbelief and something that looked almost like pity. "You know what your problem is, Jimmy," Musk said quietly. "You've forgotten the difference between cynicism and criticism. Criticism helps things improve. Cynicism just tears things down. And frankly, the world has enough destroyers. We need more builders." With that, Musk turned away from Kimmel and began walking toward the stage exit, ignoring the host's sputtered attempts to salvage the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk," Kimmel called out with forced enthusiasm, clapping his hands in a desperate attempt to frame the departure as planned. "We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors, who, unlike some people's companies, actually deliver what they promise." The camera caught Musk pausing mid-stride at this final barb. The audience collectively held its breath as the billionaire slowly turned back toward Kimmel, his expression unreadable. For 3 excruciating seconds, silence engulfed the studio. Then Musk's face transformed, not with anger as everyone expected, but with an unsettling calm that seemed far more dangerous. "You know what, Jimmy?" Musk said, his voice perfectly controlled as he walked back toward the host. "Let's talk about delivering on promises." Kimmel's smile faltered. This wasn't supposed to happen. Guests were supposed to leave when dismissed, not return for a counterattack. The producer was frantically signaling for a commercial break, but the camera operator, sensing television gold, remained fixed on the unfolding drama. "SpaceX promised to reduce launch costs by a factor of 10, Musk continued, counting off on his fingers as he approached. "We delivered. Tesla promised to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. We delivered. Neuralink promised to create interfaces between brains and computers. We're delivering. The Boring Company promised to revolutionize tunneling. We're delivering." He was standing directly in front of Kimmel now, looking down at the seated host. "And what exactly have you delivered, Jimmy? 20 years of the same tired jokes? A talk show format that hasn't evolved since the 1950s? Please, tell me about your groundbreaking innovations." The audience erupted in a mixture of gasps, scattered applause, and uncomfortable laughter. Kimmel's face had turned a shade of red that the makeup team would struggle to explain away. "I deliver entertainment," Kimmel retorted, rising from his chair to meet Musk eye to eye. "Something you might want to try instead of overpromising and underdelivering. Where's that Tesla Semi you announced 5 years ago? Where's that robot? Taxi service? Where's that brain chip that was supposed to cure paralysis? They're being developed, Musk replied, his voice steady. By people who understand that changing the world takes time. People who don't quit when things get hard or when cynics like you mock their efforts. The producer had given up on signaling for a commercial break and was now on the phone, presumably with network executives, gesturing wildly as the confrontation continued to escalate. "Oh, spare me the visionary routine," Kimmel scoffed. "You're a businessman selling dreams to inflate your stock price. The only difference between you and other CEOs is your Twitter account. And the only difference between you and a real journalist," Musk countered, "is that at least journalists pretend to do research before they attack someone's life's work." The audience was utterly transfixed now, witnessing something unprecedented in late-night television. A complete dissolution of the carefully constructed facade of celebrity interviews. "Research?" Kimmel repeated incredulously. "I've had my team research you for weeks. We know about the working conditions at Tesla, the safety violations, the union busting. Should we talk about that instead?" "By all means," Musk replied, crossing his arms. "Let's talk about how Tesla has one of the lowest injury rates in the automotive industry. Let's talk about how our factory workers receive stock options and health benefits that exceed industry standards. Let's talk about how we've created nearly 100,000 American jobs, while other manufacturers were outsourcing to countries with no labor protections whatsoever." Kimmel's face registered genuine surprise. He'd clearly expected his allegations to land more effectively. "The fact is," Musk continued, pressing his advantage, "you invited me here not to have a discussion, but to ambush me with half-truths and dated criticisms. And when I defended myself, you couldn't handle it because it didn't fit your script." "This isn't about scripts," Kimmel shot back, though his voice had lost some of its certainty. "It's about accountability. You make these grandiose promises. Your fans treat you like Tony Stark. And then when things don't materialize on schedule, you act like the timeline was just a suggestion." "Innovation doesn't follow a TV schedule, Jimmy," Musk responded, his intensity undiminished. "The Wright brothers didn't know exactly when they'd achieve flight. Jonas Salk couldn't predict the exact day the polio vaccine would work. And yes, sometimes my timelines are optimistic. But would you rather I aimed too high or not aimed at all?" The producer had apparently received instructions from above. He was now approaching the stage, clipboard in hand, looking simultaneously terrified and determined. "Gentlemen," he interjected, his voice cracking slightly, "we need to break for commercial." "No," Musk stated flatly, not taking his eyes off Kimmel. "First, Jimmy's going to explain to his audience why he thinks it's acceptable to invite someone onto his show under false pretenses and then ambush them." The audience erupted in scattered applause and murmurs. Kimmel's expression shifted, the practiced mask of the entertainer giving way to something more authentic and perhaps more human. "You're right," Kimmel said suddenly, his voice quieter. The admission sent a ripple of surprise through the studio. "I'm right about what?" Musk asked, clearly caught off guard by the sudden change in tone. "This went too far," Kimmel conceded, running a hand through his hair. "Look, Elon, my job is to push buttons, to get reactions. Sometimes I push too hard." The audience was completely silent now, witnessing something even more unexpected than the confrontation. A genuine moment of reflection. "The truth is," Kimmel continued, "it's easy to take shots from the sidelines, to mock the people actually in the arena. And yeah, sometimes your timelines are optimistic. Sometimes projects don't pan out exactly as planned. But at least you're trying to solve real problems." Musk regarded him suspiciously, trying to determine if this was yet another media tactic. "What are you saying, Jimmy?" "I'm saying," Kimmel responded, sounding uncharacteristically sincere, "that maybe the world needs more people willing to risk failure to achieve something meaningful, and fewer people like me who risk nothing while mocking those who do." The studio remained eerily quiet. the audience unsure how to react to this unexpected turn. "Well," Musk said finally, a hint of a genuine smile crossing his face for the first time that evening, "that's not what I expected you to say." "That's because your predictive models still need work," Kimmel replied, the joke landing as a peace offering rather than an attack. A ripple of relieved laughter spread through the audience. "Fair enough," Musk acknowledged, his posture relaxing slightly. "But I stand by what I said. The world needs builders more than critics." "And sometimes," Kimmel added, "the critics need to remember that." He extended his hand. "Truce?" Musk hesitated for a moment, then reached out and shook Kimmel's hand. Firmly. "Truce." The audience erupted in applause, the tension that had been building throughout the confrontation finally finding release. The producer looked like he might faint with relief. "We still need to break for commercial," Kimmel said, turning back to the camera with a more genuine smile. "But when we return, let's actually talk about the innovations you're working on. The real stuff, not the punchlines." "I'd prefer that," Musk agreed, returning to his seat as the applause continued. As the commercial light flashed on, cameras finally stopped rolling, but the buzz in the studio was deafening. Production assistants huddled in corners, furiously texting. The audience members were all on their phones, undoubtedly sharing what they'd just witnessed. The producer approached both men, dabbing sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. "That was, unexpected," he managed, looking shell-shocked. "That's the point of live television, isn't it?" Kimmel replied, the tension visibly draining from his shoulders. "Sometimes it's actually live." Musk nodded, a contemplative expression crossing his face. "Sometimes authenticity is better than sticking to the script." As the commercial break continued, something unprecedented was already happening online. Clips of the confrontation were being uploaded, shared, and commented on in real time. What had begun as a potential disaster was transforming into something else entirely. A rare moment of genuine human connection, breaking through the carefully constructed artifice of entertainment. By morning, the exchange would be trending worldwide, analyzed by media experts, memed by internet humorists, and discussed in boardrooms and classrooms alike. But unlike most viral moments, this one wouldn't be remembered for its scandal or spectacle but for something far more unusual. A glimpse of honesty in a medium built on illusion. The red light on the camera blinked back to life, signaling their return from commercial break. Kimmel and Musk exchanged a look, not of hostility, but of mutual understanding. Then they turned to face the audience, ready to continue the conversation that had unexpectedly become the most authentic moment in late-night television history.